Human trafficking may sound like something that happens elsewhere, but not only does it happen here, Ontario has recently been called a major hub, one that ensnares local women in a brutal criminal underworld. Tonight, we'll hear from one of its survivors, trafficked throughout the Niagara, Hamilton, and Brantford region since she was 13 years old. Her childhood was one of sex work, family coercion, and drug abuse. Karishma is with us in our studio, and we're going to identify her only by her first name. Also with us, Katarina MacLeod, founder and crisis counselor at Rising Angels. That's an organization that helps women who want to exit the sex trade. Hi to you both.
Hi.
Thank you for being here. I know this is difficult stuff to talk about, and I appreciate you putting really a human face on something we hear about often from an academic or political side, but rarely from people like yourself. So I want to thank you for that first. I want you to take me back to 1997. You were 13 years old. How do you get into the world of human trafficking? How does that happen?
Well, for Karishma, she was 13, and it was somebody that she knew. And they just kind of, you know, she was friends with them already, and there was a relationship built, so there was trust built. And they ended up luring her into the sex trade, taking her out to truck stops and having her servicemen there. So she lived this pretty normal life. In the daytime, she would go to school, and at nighttime, she was being trafficked.
I'm not sure you're comfortable answering this, and I'm glad to have Katarina to help you out. While this is happening, you live, as Katarina said, a normal life, and this, I imagine, happens kind of slowly. Like, were you aware of what's happening, or what does that process look like a little bit?
It wasn't immediate. Like, I wasn't all of a sudden in the trade. It progressed from abuse as a young child, and then working, like having sex with his friends and just compounding on that. Like,
you're 13 at the time. You're a kid. You living at home at the time?
Yes.
So what's your family doing through all this?
My mom was a single mom, raising 2 kids. So she had a lot of things she had to do, and if she could,
So her mom, you know, it's when you're a single mom, you're
busy.
You're busy, right? So things were going unnoticed and under the radar, and because she was still attending school and her grades were good in school, it was really, you know, the signs weren't there. Even though they were there, people just weren't seeing it.
Right. You never told them?
No, not until I was 16. So
your mom was doing the best she could?
She was, yes.
Okay. We did a program a couple weeks ago on human trafficking in this province, and we heard a lot from people saying there's this attachment between the women that are lured into this field and work in it, survivors, hopefully eventually, of this stuff, and the people that lure them in. Kind of a Stockholm syndrome sort of thing. How would you describe your relationship? Does that sound familiar to you? Like,
I could separate the two people. There was a person that I loved and was kind to me and would treat me well, and then there was like this monster type of persona that I was able to separate. So it was like, in my mind, 2 different people instead of just one person that was making me do these things. So it was kind of
classic abuse. Love you, push you away. Nice guy, angry person. And so this, you're trafficked for many, many years. As you're again, it's 13. Not saying 13-year-olds don't know some things, they don't know all things. As you're getting older through this process, what's going through your head? Or you're not even thinking about it, you're like, this is sort of my life as I know it?
Well, there was a lot of like judgment in school. I knew a lot more than other girls. When we would like sleepovers and stuff like that and girl talk, and I knew a lot more. So a lot of like name calling and bullying happened. And I realized that maybe this wasn't what everybody did, but it was still very much a secret because it had to be.
You told no one. Until you were 16, you said you told your mom. Okay, we'll get to that if you're comfortable with going there in a minute. But I want to ask you, just as you're doing this through the years, what kinds of places are you trafficked in? Where in Ontario? What kinds of buildings?
Hotels, truck stops, streets, friends' houses. Anywhere.
Fancy hotels, downtrodden hotels, didn't matter? Motels?
Yeah, it was like upscale to low class, like bed bug type of motels.
Maybe this isn't, I don't want to hurt you. I know you're in recovery. I also want to understand. So I will ask a question, maybe Katarina can help us. How does that work? Like, you're a teenage woman who, this is a life that you're living. And does someone come pick you up and take you to a hotel and say, go in there, and there will be someone telling you what to, like, I'm just so naive at this stuff. So maybe you can explain a little bit.
Usually that's the way it happens, is that these guys will make the appointments for you.
These guys being the pimps?
The pimps.
Okay.
So the pimps or the traffickers will make the appointments for you. They'll book the hotel and they'll send the clients to the hotel. A lot of times they are in the room with you, hiding in a closet, or they're, you know, in another room or waiting in a car to collect the money and make sure that your customers are coming in and out on the time allotted for them.
You know exactly where you're being taken to every time after. Yeah. Okay. Where is this pimp advertising you? How did people find out about you?
When I first started, it was truck stops, so it was just word of mouth and stuff like that. But eventually, once the internet came around, it became a lot more accessible to advertise. So like back pages and Craigslist and POF is really popular right now, and Facebook, Tinder, wow, all kinds of places you can advertise services.
You talked about hotel and motel rooms, and we heard in the program that we did earlier about taxis sometimes being involved. So there's these third parties, you know, hotel owners, people who work in hotels, clean rooms, taxi drivers who may take the victims there or the clients there. Would you say, in your experience, that there are people, these third parties, that knew exactly what the heck was going on and just...
I believe they knew.
What makes you believe they knew?
They wouldn't look me in the face, and I mean, how would you not know? You've got all these men going into this hotel room and coming and going, and this little girl inside. So how would they not know that this is happening?
Do you remember when you looked at them, what you were thinking? Did you want to say something, help me?
I couldn't say anything. I wanted to, but I couldn't do anything.
You felt trapped. And you do this for how many years?
17.
17 years is your life. So 30 years old you get out of this.
I just got out in June.
In June. Tell me about the moments that were like epiphanies for you, where you were like, good epiphanies or bad epiphanies, like you're like, all hope is lost. This is my life. Or epiphanies where you're like, maybe I could get out. How am I gonna do? Did you have those moments?
I had quite a few of those moments. I think I accepted death. I was hoping that it would happen. I was too chicken to do it myself. So I was hoping that someone would do it for me, and that was the only way I could get out.
So you'd be killed?
I kept hoping that. And, but when I was 16 and I was able to tell someone what was going on, I thought at that moment that I would be out and I would be saved and I'd be taken care of, and it didn't happen.
You did manage to leave, as you said, just this past June. So you told someone, about 90, you tell someone you're 16 at the time. Am I right in my math? 2000, you told someone.
2000, yes.
And then, you know, just this past summer, it finally happens for you. So how do you manage to escape after all these years? How do you escape this industry?
It was after a really bad date, and I had been beat up really bad. And when I went to an appointment with my counselor at the time, she begged me to go to the hospital, get checked out, stuff like that. And I thought I could deal with it. I thought I could sleep it off and nothing's bad. But seeing the caring around that happen, like seeing their faces and them caring and actually truly wanting me out, and that they knew I deserved better than this, made me realize that maybe, yeah, I do.
You mean that had never happened to you before? Maybe I'm making assumptions. I'm imagining you were hurt before during these many years, abused.
Oh, yes.
Okay. No one had ever, until this point, in how you're viewing things, looked at you and said, it's time to go and you need to get to a hospital. And no one looked at you and gave you that, I think what you're saying is like that reassuring glance that I need this to be over.
I mean, people said it. But it was just said. It was kind of, you know, you really shouldn't be doing this, or don't you think it's time to get out? But it wasn't until I saw the fear on this person's face, that it was like this person actually cares about me instead of saying what they're supposed to say. So it was a different feeling, and I think I was ready at that point.
How do you actually leave, though? Like in your head, you've made the decision, I'm done, I'm out. How do you actually escape?
Oh, it's not easy at all.
For Karishma, it was her doctor who got in touch with me and said that she had, a patient who had gone through, being trafficked and needed some support. And coming out of this is probably one of the most hardest things a woman can do, because this has been your normal for so long, and change is really, really hard. And now that the drugs are stopping, the numbing stopping, you're going to have to face those demons, and then the pain and the healing start. And I think that's the hardest thing for these girls to journey through. So when she first came to me, she was a total disaster. Very scared of everything, very scared of people, not trusting, but wanting so badly to become normal, and not understanding that it was it's a long process.
I bet. It's been 8 months?
Yeah.
9 months?
And I'm still nowhere near where I should be, like where I want to be.
Yes, want to be.
So take me through this last 8 months. Many people in your situation would suffer, you may be suffering from it, PTSD. You were a drug user, drug abuse. Are you clean?
Yes, struggling. Struggling. It's a daily fight. I mean, yes, I'm off drugs, but there's still the fight to go back, because the nightmares and the flashbacks and just day-to-day living is really hard, and it's terrifying. So there's always that little addict mind in the back of my head saying, come back, Karishma, we can help you. So
Like in a way, are you saying in some ways, some days it feels easier just to go back?
it feels easier to go back to the drugs.
Right.
I don't think I would ever go back to the sex work, ever.
I also you were trafficking at 13. You didn't have much of a childhood, or at least much of a teenage years. What have you been doing since? What are some new experiences? Like, you missed out on a lot of quote unquote normal life, normal things that teens were doing. I don't mean to be normative about it, but regular kind of things. So have you done anything that's been kind of like joyful? It's like, hey, I never got to do that.
I think the best feeling was actually swinging on a swing.
You were on it like at a park.
Yeah, just going to a park and listening to my music and swinging on the swing and feeling free, and not like caring who saw me or oh my gosh, there's this 30-year-old swinging on a swing. It was just fun.
Because you hadn't done it since you were a kid. Like 10 years old, 11 years old.
10, 11 years old, yeah. And it was a new experience, and it was freeing, and there was no shame in it at all. Like, 30 years old and swinging on a swing. Who would have
Sounds
thought?
pretty good to me. What goes through your head when she tells that story?
My heart breaks for these women, and I have my own experience in the sex trade, but when I hear her, in the baby steps, because it is baby steps, the progression of healing is baby steps. All of these girls suffer post-traumatic stress disorder and dissociation disorder. So when I see her making these little steps and calling me up with excitement, instead of calling me up broken, it's rewarding for me. And I feel like, okay, yes, I'm making a difference. And she's on her way to recovery. And I wouldn't have even brought her in here today if I didn't think that she had such a strong voice, and she's recovering so well. So I want to give her that voice. And this is what this is for her today, is that platform to finally take her freedom and take her own voice back.
Yeah, and not feel shame about your past. Where's your family? Are you reconciled with them?
I still talk to them. I have a close relationship with a few of them. Not all of them, but it's nice, and it's work, and it's happening. So,
who are these guys? Who are these Johns? Who are these Pams?
They're anybody and everybody, and that's the scary part.
What does that mean? They're anybody and everybody?
Well, the Johns are from people higher up in society to considered lower income people. the pimps and the traffickers, a lot of time it's organized crime. A lot of time it's not. It's within the family. A lot of times, you know, it's just the culture and the lifestyle that our kids are starting to grow up with. I mean, media plays a huge role in how our kids are viewing themselves and other people. And, you know, video games and, you know, music videos, the guys are always, you know, have a slew of women around them and they're all dressed scandalously. So it's about power. And this is what our kids are growing up and seeing. And I see it happening in the schools now. Instead of bullying, you know, students are pimping out other students. And it's
in Ontario.
In Ontario. It's in Brampton is a huge hub.
You're telling me kids as young as what?
15.
15-year-olds are going to school and their colleagues, their classmates are pimping them up, saying,
Yes.
you can have sex with this person if you pay me this amount of money.
That's right. That's right. So we're seeing it happen. I deal with different police services where they've called me and said, you know, that this is happening now in the schools. So instead of, you know, a bully beating a girl up, they're actually pimping her out. So she's being forced to sell herself instead of getting beaten up. A lot of the girls who are entering this industry at 15 and 16 are like, well, if I'm putting out anyways, I might as well get paid for it. And it looks very glamorous when you first go in because you're making such fast money. But that soon becomes, you know, deflated. And by the time it does, they're stuck.
This is incredible. Incredible that it's happening right under all of our noses.
It is.
How much has she helped you?
Oh my gosh, I don't think if she didn't come along, I don't think I'd be here. Honestly, I mean, she's like a second mom.
You call her Mama Cat, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about the politics, though. This was mentioned in the budget, mentioned before that as well. The Premier's, you know, has said that the province will come up with this comprehensive strategy to combat human trafficking. That is supposed to happen by June. She's reaching out to Manitoba for some ideas from their experiences there. As things stand now in our province, do you think there are enough resources, enough services out there to assist the victims of trafficking in our province?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. One of the biggest blockades that I have working with these women is there's nowhere to put them. There is no long-term housing, transitional housing. You know, these girls have to go into shelters because a lot of them are coming out and they don't have a home. And putting them into shelters is not the best fit for them. So, I mean, Canada is way behind to even where Manitoba is. And
Ontario is way behind.
Sorry, yeah. Ontario, yeah. I mean, Manitoba is amazing.
What are they doing in Manitoba that you like?
Well, they actually have places for girls and they have support systems and there's a lot of money to help with victim care. Where here there isn't. There isn't those things available to our girls.
The Premier's also connected this issue with missing and murdered Indigenous women. You know, there are statistics out there that say about a quarter of all the women trafficked are Aboriginal or Indigenous. You're Aboriginal. Do you think that's a specific risk for people from your community and communities?
I honestly believe that it's a human problem and not just an Aboriginal problem, because when I was in the trade, I only knew of myself being Aboriginal. I saw a lot of different races and different cultures and not focusing just on Aboriginal women. And I believe it's a problem no matter what race or socio-economical, like it happens anywhere to anyone.
As you said, this happened to all kinds of girls.
Right. I mean, in all honesty, Karishma is one of the first women that I've dealt with who is Aboriginal. All of the girls that I've dealt with are like Canadian girls, white girls, and
rich, poor, demographic, smart, uneducated.
All over the place.
Runs the gamut.
Yeah, there's no, you know, it's, trafficking is so rampant, and this whole boyfriend scenario that's happening to these girls is how these girls are getting lured in. So it doesn't matter if you're coming from a good family or if you're coming from a rich family. These girls are falling vulnerable to somebody who's paying attention to them, usually an older man, taking her out, wining, dining, you know, buying her gifts, making her feel all this attention and love that she's never felt, and that's how they're hooking these girls.
Sound familiar to you?
Yes, very much so.
What's happened to this jerk? I guess I shouldn't probably know. What's happened to this guy?
He's still walking.
He's still walking. I think
Yeah.
we've had 2 convictions in Toronto
Right.
for human trafficking. I
Right.
think there's about 34 across our country. He's out there probably doing the same thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. It's very hard, first of all, to even ask a girl to put herself through that.
You mean through a legal
through
process?
a legal process,
Sure.
because the conviction rate is so low, and they're not going to get a lot of time. So, you know, until Canada changes those laws, I think that to really ask a victim or a survivor to go through that, it's not fair.
Do you know if he's still doing this with other women?
I don't know.
Does he try and contact you?
I choose not to have contact, and I choose not to know. And I already find it hard to sleep at night, so I don't think if I knew if he was doing it to someone else that I'd be able to sleep at all. So,
What do you want us to know when we look at Karishma? What do you want us to know?
That there's hope, that what you think is your normal can become your unnormal, that there is grace. I mean, when I came out, I was at the same place she was. You know, I didn't know anything. I didn't know how to cook. I didn't know how to clean. I didn't know how to dress. I didn't know how to talk. And it's like really having a daughter, I feel like the mama cat, because I have to reteach her, as well as the other girls, all the things that they've lost. And, you know, when a girl is abused and trauma happens to her, that part of her brain doesn't mature the way that it should. So she kind of stays stuck there. So for me, it's about getting these girls and stabilizing them in their crisis right away. And once we can do that, it's about teaching them how to deal. Because she's always going to have nightmares. She's always going to have triggers, but it's how to deal with that so it doesn't consume who you are anymore.
Thank you for the good work that you do. And for you, welcome to the other side and recovery. And thank you very much for telling us about your story. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Funding for the Agenda with Steve Paikin is provided by Ontario's more than 80,000 chartered professional accountants.